Alright everyone, welcome to Jonathan Talks, Jonathan Comics. This is Jonathan here. And that's right, I'm kind of riffing off of cartoonist kayfabe a little bit. But we're going to try something a little bit different here. Today I'm going to be looking over The Woman Who Loved Life and Other Stories, illustrated by the one and only Johnny Craig. These are actually some early Johnny Craig works in the EC line. Written and drawn and under a pen name, FC Aljon, which is kind of a pseudonym for both Johnny Craig, who was notoriously slow to work, and Al Feldstein, who was typically writing EC, though he did do some illustrations as well. This is actually one of the first in the EC Artist Library by Fantagraphics books. And although some of the artwork in here is a little bit rougher than later Johnny Craig works, as you'll see, some of it is pretty prominent. And here we go. And you know, I think you could see some influences in here from Harvey Kurtzman, maybe even Jack Kirby. The book itself actually features, when I said early, you take a look here, it's actually late 40s, early 50s. So from the early EC titles, and actually features a one-off from one of the only EC superhero who went away after that first line, Moon Girl. But yeah, that's actually Johnny Craig, but from 1994. So this is at the beginning and toward the end. And so let's skip ahead a little bit here. One of the great things about some of these works that I've just been noticing is that these the splash pages, the openings are just really, really striking. They draw you in. Here's one, Portfolio of Death. So we'll flip through here and go over. Oh, and this actually is a milestone here itself. This is actually the first EC horror title before they were concentrating on kind of war and crime before. Let's take a flip through here and kind of talk a little bit more about these books, so we can find some of those crazy splash titles. Of course, here's the eponymous The Woman Who Loved Life. If you go to page 73, actually, there's an unprinted, probably because of maybe censor concerns or splash page for this story, Edna Sunday. And I'm guessing the one on the left is the one that was unprinted. Maybe it was a little bit too much for the readership. And there you can see there, FC Aljon. So, I guess Al and John, Feldstein and Craig. But anyway, the artwork is still pretty great. And you can see the inking work is really kind of brings out Craig's lines of his expressions, and particularly the folds, clothing, really makes a lot of the kind of movement of his characters. Anyway, it's kind of, I haven't actually read through this book, so which is something I'm probably not going to be doing very much, but I just got this today, including this camera rig, so this is why this is the first Jonathan Talks, Jonathan Comics video. I'll explain what Jonathan Comics are probably in another video, but for now, just kind of looking through this brand new book to my library. I have a few other EC Artist Library books from Fantagraphics I'll be going through that I've kind of read in much more detail, particularly starting with one of my favorite EC artists, Greg Sadowski, and have a ton of Krigstein material to show you that I've read in depth, so I kind of have a great understanding of it. And it's kind of one of the things this channel will be doing. But in any case, I definitely want to bring to light some details about this great series of books that's been put out by EC, that's trying to cover Fantagraphics, trying to cover EC artists by EC artists instead of doing what other companies and collections have done in the past, which is, of course, to go by separate titles. And that way you kind of get a mix of artists, but then you can't actually kind of see the progression of these particular, the employees for EC Comics at the time. So anyway, and we'll be getting to a whole bunch of other really great books that are Jonathan Comics. I have one right here, for instance. This is volume 1 of 2 of sort of comic biography of Basil Wolverton, who was briefly featured in EC, particularly in Panic, because he kind of drew some more kind of like comic-like stories, in addition to, of course, sci-fi. This is volume 1, Creeping Death From Neptune, edited and written by the great Greg Sadowski, who frequently will come up on this channel. Volume 2, Brain Bats from Venus, will also be featured at some point. To give you an idea, I mean, this is some really rich material here too. This is great archival stuff. There's full color letters. It's just unbelievable restorations of Wolverton's work. This volume, 1909 to 1941. So we'll feature some of his early stuff, up and coming. Wolverton was known as an artist who had a lot of trouble breaking into the industry, even though he was successful in the long run, particularly because he was not only a native, but continued to reside in the Pacific Northwest and not in New York, where a lot of this stuff was happening in the early 20th century. But nevertheless, his stuff was just so great that it had to be basically recognized, even though he had a lot of trouble dealing with New York publishers. Like I said, he got some play in EC, and then had some other play in some more significant publishers after EC went away, and eventually ended up inspiring some of the great artists we know from the mid to later 20th century, particularly in underground comics, independent comics, like, as you can probably see from some of the things that are going on here, R. Crumb. So we'll get to that book in more detail in another video, but for now, this is Jonathan signing off. Thanks for watching.